Good morning and welcome to another Grain Farmers Presents a Farmer Wellness webinar series. Again, we have Kathy Summers here from the University of Guelph's High Stress and Performance Clinic. Today talking to us about how to stop worrying. Kathy, I'm going to give you the floor.
A warm welcome to everybody. I'm wondering if anybody here is really good at worrying, an expert maybe. Did you know that the brain has a negativity bias that makes us prone to worry? And like a rainy day, there can be pros and cons to a rainy day. There can be pros and cons to worrying. If you're thinking that the worrying is maybe running your life, a really good way to start approaching it is to keep some records about your worrying. It's called a worry tracker. You would write down what the worry is that you're worried about, and then literally write down, what day is it, what time of day is it, and then note how much is it making you emotional, is it stressing you out or getting you going? And you might be able to learn a lot from that. One person said to me they were really surprised. They began to realize they worry the most when it's on the weekend, and they spent many, many hours and a couple of days by themselves. Another person said to me they realized they worried the most when they were with a particular person. It was really feeding off of this other individual. And just on their own, they were able to figure out some ideas to begin decreasing the amount of worrying by either becoming more active on the weekend or reaching out and not being alone for such prolonged periods of time, or limiting the time that they are with that person who is feeding them into the worry cycle, or starting to take some steps to really figure out how to direct the conversation when they're with that particular person. If you realize that it's the con of worrying, that it's not constructive, helping you solve problems, but it is destructive. It's making you feel uncomfortable, stressed, anxious, or sick, maybe giving you insomnia, not sleeping at night, giving you headaches or stomach upsets. That's really the negative side of worry. And I want to share with you a few tips today to try and really decrease that. The definition of worrying is that I'm thinking about a problem that I'm afraid is going to happen in the future. Our brain has this negativity bias such that if something negative happens to me today, I don't want that to happen again, so I put it on my radar screen. I'm sort of scanning every day for negative things. You can see how evolutionarily this could be really helpful to me. It could help me prevent getting stuck in a negative situation again. And if I'm thinking there might be a problem, what if the equipment isn't ready for when the harvest starts? What if I need to get a new part? What if the price is going up? If I know that there might be a problem, what could I do to either prevent that problem or to cope through it? There's an evolutionary advantage to being able to predict a problem, and most importantly, coming up with a plan to either prevent it, or if it's impossible to prevent, if it's outside of my control, what can I do to get through that situation the best that I can, as unscathed as possible? So this is the key. The key to curbing worrying is to come up with a plan of action to get through the situation. But most people don't do that. And it's because of the negativity bias. We are prone to not only holding on to the negative thought when it comes into our mind, but the negativity bias means we also tend to overestimate how bad the situation could be and underestimate our ability to deal with it. When the thought comes through our mind, sometimes it seems so urgent, we stop thinking about all the other thoughts. In fact, we may start to ruminate. This is a word that's come from ruminant animals. Ruminant animals are animals like cows that eat grasses. They've got more than one chamber in their stomach, and they chew that grass. They chew it over and over. We say that they're chewing their cud. When human beings are thinking a thought, thinking about the worry, what if there's a problem? What if it's bad? What if it's really bad? What if I can't get on top of it? If I'm just ruminating like that, I'm getting stuck and mired down in the problem. If I'm saying to myself today, there's a tickle in my throat, what if I'm catching a cold? What if it's worse than that? What if it's actually the flu? What if it's that new H1N1 strain that's going around this fall? What if it's worse than that? What if I have the really virulent form? What if I have the super virulent form and it's deadly? Could you hear there that I came with a bit of a problem, popped into my mind? What if this is a cold? But I was overestimating this. I just kept on going. The train left the station and it kept barreling down the track, going faster and faster. What if it's worse than that? What if it's worse than that? This is not constructive worrying. This is the destructive form of worrying. So I wanted to share with you a few tips today to address this destructive worry when we're overestimating how bad it can be, or underestimating our ability to deal with it, or ruminating solely on the problem and not moving towards a plan of action. The research tells us that there are 2 proven paths to curb worrying, to help decrease the negative angle of it and make it more constructive. What are these 2 proven paths? One is to challenge the thoughts, and the other is relaxation training. So you know I come from the stress management and high performance clinic. My strength is in teaching people relaxation techniques. That's how I got into talking about worrying when I was looking at the research and what are strategies that can really be helpful. So we're going to do some tips from both of these proven paths. If we start first off with the relaxation, there's numerous techniques that we could use to relax, but there are a couple that have been specifically studied with regards to worrying. These ones are working with our breathing, muscle training, and imagery. We're going to have a short combination of these strategies right now. You heard me say the definition of worrying is thinking about a problem I'm afraid is going to happen in the future. Afraid, that's an emotion. My mind in the future, it's not in the present moment. This is why relaxation is so helpful. If I'm doing a relaxation strategy, or I'm focusing on my breathing or my muscles or using my imagination, and I'm right here, right now, I am not in the future, and I'm calming down that emotion of fear. The ability to self-calm is one of the hallmarks of a resilient person. So let's do a little bit of this training right now. So then if we start talking about some things that are our worries in a few minutes, we'll have a strategy that we can use to take our brain out of the future to the present moment and to calm down any fear that's coming along with that. To relax right now, it may be helpful to cut out distraction, to avoid looking at the screen or printed materials, to perhaps close your eyes or half close your eyes, looking downwards at a spot on the floor so you can tune into your own body. Take a moment right now with your eyes closed or half closed to check out your own body. Take a breath in and hold it for a second in your chest so you can feel your chest, your trunk, your breath. And as you're tuning into that, exhale. Feel the air going out. Feel your shoulders settling down. Get out of your head and get into your body. Notice the rhythm of your breathing, aware of the breath in, aware of the breath out. And as you're thinking about your breathing, let your shoulders relax, let your back relax, let your waist relax, so you're able to breathe more effortlessly low in your trunk from your waist. Breathing from the diaphragm, our primary breathing muscle, at the level of the lower ribs. Each time you breathe in, your waist moving a small amount. And as you're breathing from the waist, Slow down your breathing. More slowly, comfortably breathing in. More peacefully, slowly breathing out. Feeling the air as it's coming in. Feeling the air as it's going out. Each time you breathe out, saying to yourself, my jaw and shoulders are relaxing more. With each breath out, telling yourself, my jaw and shoulders are smoothing more. When the mind wanders, this is normal brain behavior. Part of the training is just bringing it back, and in particular, bringing it to the present moment, feeling the breath coming in, feeling the breath going out, or with each exhale saying, my jaw and shoulders are smoothing more. To really bring our attention to the body, it can be helpful to do some muscle training. Perhaps you're familiar with this technique. Right now, notice one hand, aware of your thumb, your fingers, your palm, the back of your hand, your wrist, aware of your hand. And as you're noticing your hand, lightly make a fist, bending your fingers and thumb gently, holding the tension. Feel what that's like to hold a light, comfortable level of tension in your hand. All of your awareness on those sensations and where the tension is being held. Holding for about 10 seconds, 12 seconds, feeling the tension. As you're feeling where tension is held in your hand, let it go. Where you felt the muscles letting go of tension, tell them to let go more and more. Telling it to let go right into the heart of those muscles. Each breath out, helping the muscles smooth more and more comfortably. Giving it about 20 seconds to really let go of tensions that were held. And allowing your hand to continue letting go of tension. Now move on. Notice your lower arm, aware of the region from your elbow to your wrist. As you're noticing your low arm, make a gentle tension there by bending your wrist a little bit. So you're holding a light, comfortable tension in your low arm, letting go of all other thoughts and tuning in. How does it feel when I'm holding some tension? Feeling how it is to hold tension. And when you're ready, let it go. Where you felt the release, tell it to let go more right there. With each breath out, imagine the muscles smoothing more as it lets go. Each breath out, letting go more. And as your lower arm continues resting more completely, move on now. Move on to your upper arm, aware of this region from your shoulder to your elbow, aware of the upper arm. And as you're tuning into it, make a gentle tension by bending at your wrist a little bit, bringing your hand closer towards your shoulder, like you're making a bicep muscle on the beach. You're going to show everybody that muscle in the upper arm. Feel where the tension is held without making it uncomfortable, a light level of tension being held. between your shoulder and your elbow, feeling it. As you're feeling those tensions, allow your arm and hand to be fully supported again on your lap or the table or desk. And let it go. Let go of all that tension that was held. Tell it to let go more and more with each breath out. When your mind wanders, that's normal. Just bring it back. With the breath out, tell that upper arm to rest even more at ease. Let it go. Allow that upper arm to continue resting more and more comfortably, letting go more, even as you move on, noticing now your shoulders, aware of your shoulders, your upper chest, your upper back. And as you're tuning in here to the shoulders, gently make a light pressure and tension by lifting your shoulders up 1/2 inch towards your ears, towards the ceiling. Not 5 inches. I know they're big muscles, they could go up a lot, but just a little bit of comfortable, everyday kind of tension. People who are go, go, go all day tend to hike their shoulders up a little bit, just like this. Feel the tightness being held. As that's registering, you're more aware of where the tension is. Let it go. And tell it to let go more, right where the releasing sensation was. Each subsequent breath, imagine it letting go even more right there. Feeling the breath out, telling the shoulders to let go more. If you're familiar with this muscle technique, you know you can move on to all the other muscles of your body. But for now, let's move on. Let's move on to our imagination. In your mind's eye, can you vividly imagine a calm, tranquil place? Whether it's outdoors or indoors, imagine that peaceful place, how it looks, the colors, the furniture or the things outdoors, the colors, how it feels, how it sounds. Turn up the vividness in your mind. Taking a moment to be calm and comfortable in this serene, tranquil space. It can really help to use all of your senses to make the images more profound in your mind. If it's hard to imagine seeing something or feeling something or hearing something, tell yourself what it would be like if you could see, hear, feel, smell what it's like in this calm, tranquil place. Relaxing our breathing, releasing tension from our muscles, using our imagination to imagine a calm, tranquil space. These are skills that develop with practice, just like riding a bicycle, driving a tractor, shooting the hockey puck into the net with accuracy, learning a new dance move, a new computer language. These skills get better with practice. So I encourage you just to give yourself credit now for trying an experiment and for considering practicing something like these to help you get your brain more calm and in the present moment. For now, we're going to finish this training and move on to a few other things. So tell yourself it's time to finish up what we've just been doing. Feel the cool air coming in. Each cool breath brings in energy, vigor, vitality. And as the cool air comes in, feel that energy coming into your arms and your legs. Wiggle your fingers a bit, wiggle your toes, open your eyes, stretch out a little bit. And if you're about to drift off, then bend a little bit at your elbows, moving at your elbows so your arms, as the movement is happening, gives your brain the message to be alert. It's not time to fall asleep right now. There's a few more things that we want to cover. The two proven paths to decrease and curb worrying are challenging the thoughts and relaxation. We started relaxation by tuning into our breathing. Breathing is considered the cornerstone of relaxation. And if I can focus on my breathing, I'm coming into the present moment in addition to calming myself. Being able to breathe more slowly, more comfortably from the waist is a great skill to have. Especially if I'm finding that the worrying is really escalating anxiety. In fact, anxiety is an apprehensive expectation and worrying. Worrying is a part of anxiety. Just why it's so helpful to understand a little bit more about worrying. We can really decrease anxiety and start decreasing worrying if we've got a good breathing habit. More and more, psychologists who work with people who are worriers and have anxiety are finding that this muscle relaxation where we tense and release can be really helpful at two different levels. The obvious level we've already talked about, getting out of my head, into my body, into the present moment, and calming and relaxing things. But they're also finding that the steps that we were taking could be really helpful as well. Did you catch it? When we were doing the muscle training, the first thing that we did was we were holding a little bit of tension. The next thing was letting go of the tension and then moving on to another muscle area, holding tension, letting it go, and moving on. The steps then in this muscle exercise were holding a gentle tension, letting it go, and moving on. The researchers are finding that people who are really good with this technique and maybe literally have been using these phrases, hold, let go, move on, can start using these same phrases with the worrying. Because if they're ruminating on the worry and just thinking it over and over again, what if I'm getting a bad cold? What if it's bad? What if it's really lethal? I'm getting stuck in that merry-go-round and not getting off. If I could recognize that I am holding on to that thought, it may be helpful from the training with the muscles to literally say the same thing to the thoughts, to say, hey, I've just been holding on to that, let it go and move on. It's time to now think about getting ready for lunch or going out into the barn and preparing the equipment or getting out into the fields and doing one more scouting round. So if I could, with my thoughts, do the same thing I was doing with my muscles, realize I was holding, then say, let it go, move on. It's much easier if I've done the training with my body. My brain will catch on, and much easier to do the same thing with my thoughts. The final trial that we did with working with relaxation was imagery, imagining a peaceful place, a calm, tranquil location, a place where I can be at ease. Having that vividly in my mind can really help me rest. There is an alternative way to use imagination for folks who are worrying about things in the future. Let's try the quick version right now. You're going to hear me quickly work a little bit with the breathing, with the muscles, and then imagination. A quick thing that you might find you could use if you realize I'm worried about something in the future. What if this tickle in the throat is going to become that really bad H1N1 flu? I just caught myself saying that worry thought. Stop that thought. Get out of my head, get into my body right now. Then if you want to close your eyes again to really focus on your body, feel free to close your eyes or half close your eyes right now, looking down at a spot on the floor. Turn your attention inwards, feel the breath in, As you exhale, tell yourself jaw and shoulders are letting go more, letting go of the tension. Notice the next easy breath coming in, and with the exhale, saying jaw and shoulders, let go more. And now in your imagination, can you imagine fast forwarding that movie of the cold, the flu? Imagine now it's 15 minutes after the conclusion of that. The cold is over, the flu is over, the tickle in the throat is gone. It's 15 minutes after the resolution of this particular situation. And imagine how that feels. I'm feeling better. My throat is fine. And maybe noticing how it feels like a bit of weight is off my shoulders. Events come and go. Sometimes we're mired down in thinking about the situation itself. It may be helpful to use our emotion to realize most things are time limited. Bring my mind to fast forwarding the movie to 15 minutes after the conclusion of the situation. And that often will bring a bit of ease into my body and my mind. Finishing up now, open your eyes, stretch out a little bit. Relaxation, whether using the combination of things that we just did or things individually with the breathing, the muscles, or a calm, tranquil place, a safe haven, or maybe something else that you know really calms you. I would strongly encourage you to investigate this path. It is a proven path. I find people will come to my relaxation class. I remember one person in particular saying, actually, Kathy, after several weeks of doing some of these relaxation techniques, I'm not worrying nearly so much. I don't need to go to your more intensive seminar where we talk about worrying because I'm finding now it's manageable. When I'm doing these short techniques, like we did just a second ago, I'm doing something short like that very frequently throughout the day. And I'm moving towards action. I'm not getting stuck and mired down in the ruminating and escalating the problem in my mind. So for some individuals, this path of relaxation is a very potent one. I'd encourage you to consider it. The other path, challenging the thoughts. One of the strongest ways to do this is to actually, if we're going to be worriers anyway, let's worry right with our worrying brain. And that is WRITE, with a pen and a paper, worrying right. I'm going to ask you to take a pen right now. Take your pen and a paper. It could be a blank sheet or maybe the back of the handout that you downloaded where there were some tips and information about worrying. And with this piece of paper and with the pen, could you divide that paper into 2 columns? You could fold the paper in half, or you could draw a line down the middle, 2 columns. With your pen, write down this header at the top of column number 1. Literally write down, what if, ... This is the worrying column. We want to get it out of our head, avoid it mushrooming into something bigger than it really is. Let's be realistic. Write down right now. I'm going to give you a moment to write down all the things that you're worried about these days. There may be small worries about timeframes, or big worries, which may also be about timeframes. It may be about things that are emotional. The top 5 worries for most North Americans are worrying about money, worrying about health, worrying about their job, their work, or school if they're in school, worrying about relationships, worrying about family. And for farmers, these things are often very intertwined. Often it's a family farm. They're the owner of the farm. So money, health, family, relationships could all be coming in, feeding into the worrying. Right now, you're taking a moment to write down the things that you're most worried about, most frequently worried about, things that when you're in bed come into your head. Are you finding that the more you write, the more you could write? That you're getting on a roll, the floodgates are opening, and it's just all coming out? That may indicate you're pretty good at worrying, that it's a habit that you've practiced a lot. Because worrying is a habit, a particular way of thinking. I'm going to ask you to take a look at these worries that you've written down. And you can finish drafting the list later when the seminar is over. But for now, the ones that you've got written down, is there anything in here that is totally unrealistic? It's pure fantasy, science fiction? One of the reasons we're writing stuff down is to stay real, because our brain with that negativity bias is making us very prone to overestimate how bad the problem could be. So much so that it might become very illogical and irrational. If I'm seeing it in black and white, I'm trying to keep myself rational and looking at what the realistic problems are that are coming up. So there is some value in writing down what these problems are. But the greatest power of this exercise is in column 2. So I'm going to ask you to finish and just leave column 1 for now and move over to column 2. With your pen at the top of column 2, write down this header. Literally write down, so what if blank? I will handle it by ... So your header at the top of column 2 is, so what if blank? I will handle it by ... Obviously, this is our action column. What am I going to do to get through the situation? If there's anything I could do to prevent the situation from happening, what could I do to prevent it? If I can't prevent it, how could I minimize it to make it a smaller problem, to get through as unscathed as possible through this particular situation? But you realize some situations I don't have any control over. I might not be able to prevent the situation. I might not be able to minimize the situation. So I'm going to write down, what am I going to do to get through that situation if it does occur? Try this exercise right now. Choose one item from the first column. Choose an item that's a mild to moderate problem so you get a feeling of what this exercise is like. We'll leave the ones that are really super emotional for later, because they have a tendency to really grip us, maybe hijack our thinking, so it's hard to really go through this particular exercise until I've got a feel for what it's like to do this exercise. So for right now, choosing one item from the first column, a mild to moderate problem. Fill that in the blank with column 2. So what if that happens? I will handle it by. And take a moment now to start drafting your plan. If you could take steps to prevent it, what would those be? If you could minimize it, what would those be? And if the situation is going to be happening, what could I do to cope through the situation? What would I do? What actions would I take? How would I be handling myself to get through this event? As you're writing down some things in this second column, how does it feel? How does it feel to write down some plans? Commonly, many people will say it feels a bit of easing with the stress of this. Or I'm calming myself by doing it. Or in a workshop that I gave yesterday, a woman said it felt very empowering to be writing down that there were steps that I could take. This is why we're doing an exercise like this, because the negativity bias makes us very prone to underestimating our abilities to deal with a situation. Here I am reminding myself I've handled tough things before, and there maybe are some steps I can take here to get through this situation, as tough as it may be. But sometimes when we're working with the second column, it can be really hard and uncomfortable, because I might be realizing that this is a situation I have no control over. As much as I would love to control the weather or the economy or other people, I cannot control these things. The only thing I truly can control is myself. So sometimes people literally write down in the second column, God grant me the strength to change what I can change, the ability to accept what I can't change, or that this is somebody else's problem. It's not my situation to really have any control in. Or God grant me the wisdom to accept what I can't change and to know the difference between what I can change and what I can't change. Sometimes seeing it in black and white helps me let go a little bit more and realize this is something that's outside of my control. If it is one of these situations that you don't have control over, here's what I am going to ask you to write down. Do you still have some space there in that second column? Write down this for future reference. If there's something in the column previous that I have no control over, then this is what I can write down. I might not be able to control this situation, but I can control my reactions in this situation. I can't control the situation, but I can control my reactions in this situation. So I can control what I say to other people and the tone in which I say it. I can control the tensions in my body and do some things we've talked about previously, releasing the tension and slowing my breathing. I can control my behaviors. I can control what I'm saying inside my head. If I find it would be helpful, if the situation happens, to have a shoulder to cry on or somebody to talk to. If I think that it would be helpful to take some other actions or steps, what would I do to help me get through the tough situation? And that may include, what am I going to do to stay physically strong? In column 2, I might be writing down, I might not be able to control the situation. So to help me get through it, I'm going to stay strong by being physically active every day, eating nutritiously every 3 to 4 hours, foods that could fuel me. I'm going to protect my sleep time. I'm going to have some time for myself every day to do something that nurtures me or feeds my spirit, so that I will stay strong to get through this situation. The hard part about worrying is that we're worried about a problem that may not have a solution, that I might not be able to prevent. But if I could come up with some type of plan about how I'm going to get through it, it turns down the anxiety and stress enough that I'm not getting sick from the worries, that I'm the person who's coping through them, the person who's thriving under pressure. This is a skill, to come up with a plan and to keep calming myself as I'm activating that plan to get through the situation. You've handled tough situations before, right? Yeah. You've been embarrassed before, right? You've maybe failed at something before. The first time you rode the bicycle, you fell off. We've all handled tough situations before. The negativity bias makes us forget this. It can be really helpful. And some people write this down in column number 2. Remember, I am an intelligent, creative person with strengths and talents and resources. I have handled tough things before, and I will handle this. I've handled tough things before. I will handle this. I'm going to ask you to go to the top of column number 2 and circle that phrase, I will handle it. So it jumps off the page at you. I will handle it is a mantra that I am proposing you say to yourself to keep the worries in the constructive pro column, using them to your advantage, coming up with a plan. I will handle it. A few years ago, there was a research study. It was a meta-study. It surveyed all previous research that had asked the question, when somebody is getting stressed, anxious, and worries are increasing, what would be the best phrase they could say to themselves? And the best phrase turned out to be, I will handle it. That's why I'm proposing this as your new mantra, why it's here at the top of column number 2. Here's a quiz question for you. Why is it much more powerful to say, I will handle it, than saying to yourself, I can handle it? Do you know? If I say, I can handle it, that's a little bit more wishy-washy. Maybe I can, maybe I choose to do it, maybe I choose not to, and it doesn't have the same energy moving me forward. It also allows the negativity bias to pop up, that little voice inside my head or on my shoulder. If I say I can handle it, the voice might start saying, but what if I can't? What if is the scariest phrase that I know, because we always fill in the blank with a problem, something that we perceive as being unmanageable. And if we continue on that path, the train going down the track, thinking of scarier and scarier what ifs, we become a ball of anxiety. Saying, I will handle it, starts moving towards action, and we're shutting off that little what if voice. We're not getting into a debate with it. I can handle it. What if I can't? I can, but no, what if I can't? What if it's really bad? We're avoiding that scenario completely. I will handle it. Combining these together could be extremely helpful. If I've just been thinking through my plan and got some ease or calm, but maybe still feel a little bit revved up because it's emotional, what I was worried about. What I'd like to do next, now that I've drafted my plan, take the paper that you've got, and right now put that paper away. Fold it up, put it in your pocket, put it away in a book, a folder, put it away. And notice how it looks, how it feels, how it sounds to put it away. We're parking these thoughts. We're parking the paper. We're putting it away the same way I would park my tractor in the shed, that I would park my groceries in the refrigerator or in the freezer. I don't want to think about them, don't need to think about them all day, 24/7. Our worry thoughts, we often are pulling out and we're thinking about them a lot. But the ability to mentally put them aside can be really developed, trained, if after thinking about it with my worry time, I take that paper and I literally put it away. So I'm training my brain, getting used to the idea there's a time to think about these thoughts. And then there's a time to put that away, to park it like I parked that tractor and move on to the other tasks of the day. If it's hard to park it, then I might need to have my next task to be one that's very, very engaging. A task where I have to talk out loud to myself, sing out loud while I'm doing that task. So I'm getting my attention while I'm doing that task, to park it more fully, to leave it behind. Yesterday I ran a group class And at the outset of the class, one person was reporting to me that they actually had tried this exercise of writing down their worries and the plan. They were saying as the week went by, especially the last couple of days, it was really hard to think of things to worry about. They'd really gotten in the habit of coming up with a plan, and the anxiety was starting to significantly decrease because of just using this particular exercise. Worry right, writing it down, parking it, and then moving on. I realize it sounds very trite. Oh, you take a piece of paper, you write down in column 1 your worries, and column 2 you write down the plan. If you have never done this exercise before, I strongly recommend that you try it as an experiment. The researchers would ask you to try it for 2 weeks every day. So it's a brain training exercise, pulling it out only at certain times during the day, once a day, a time of your choice, writing it down. Try not to do it right before bed. We want the few hours before bed to be more calming and unwinding. I would do it much earlier. And then put it aside and park it for the rest of the day. You would do this for 2 weeks every day. And the research would also suggest if you're someone who has a tendency to obsessive, compulsive thoughts or behaviors, that actually in those 2 weeks you would do it twice a day to really train your brain and see if you're finding as effective as many of my clients are reporting. The only way you'll know is by trying it as an experiment. To sum up some of the things that we've talked about so far. Worrying has a definition. Worrying is literally talking to myself about negative things I'm afraid will happen in the future. In blue are the pressure points where we can work on curbing it. In the talk, I'm working with the fear, the emotion by self-calming and getting my brain out of the future into the present moment. These would be where we could use strategies to intervene, to shift the worry from being destructive to something that is constructive. So I'm coming up with a plan of action. So then I can let it go and I can move on to the other tasks of the day. Mantra, I will handle it, said frequently, especially if a thought is coming through during the day. Just addressing it right then and there. I will handle it. What can I do through that situation or prevent it if possible? Pitfalls that most commonly crop up are overestimating how bad the situation could be, underestimating my abilities to deal with it, the sense of urgency, ruminating on that. In fact, that worry right exercise checks off all these boxes. By writing down the first column of what the worries are, I'm not overestimating, so I check off that box. No more of the estimation, overestimating. And writing down my plan, I'm no longer underestimating my ability to deal with it. Check off that box, not so much underestimation. And the sense of urgency, instead of stopping everything just to worry, hey, I'm going to choose a time every day. I'm training my brain, it will be addressed, and I'm choosing the time. And instead of ruminating, thinking about it all day long, I'm going to do it in my worry time. I'm training myself to do it solely then, and then park it and move on. If we're uncomfortable with uncertainty, that might make us more prone to be a worrier. And the fact of the matter is, the future is uncertain. We cannot predict it. For those of you who were reading the Ontario Farmer last week, you would have seen Philip Shaw's report talking about estimating the markets coming up. He was literally talking about the uncertainty of the markets, where we would say to ourselves things like, what happens to Ontario corn prices if frost strikes this week? What happens if Brazil pumps out another record soybean crop and the loonie heads towards 90 cents? What if? There are all these uncertainties in the future. And what I really liked about Phil's article was he said, we don't know. We cannot control the future. We have to become more comfortable at living with some level of uncertainty. We have to choose a practice, if we're in the futures market, that we are comfortable with. To become more comfortable with uncertainty, this is one of the newest places in the research about anxiety, would be maybe every day do something that I am a bit uncomfortable with. So I get more used to handling discomfort. So for example, if I'm uncomfortable with conversation, socializing, I can maybe make a point the next time I'm going to meetings or in church or social gatherings to sit with people that I don't normally talk to put myself in a situation where it's a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe I would try making a new dish for supper that I'm not really sure if my family's going to like, and there's a bit of uncomfortable uncertainty with that. If I feel really strongly about certain causes, I might not like knocking on doors, asking for some donations, asking for other people to help me support this cause. But if I believe in it strongly enough, I would work with that uncertainty. Asking questions in a meeting, in a webinar like this, there might be some uncertainty with that. But if I could put myself out there every day, often when I'm working with students, I'll say, sometimes making those cold calls for the summer jobs may feel really uncomfortable because you don't know what's going to happen. But maybe that would be the way to get a summer position. How could we get more comfortable with uncertainty? Would be practicing in more uncertain situations and getting more used to it and developing our skills to self-calm in those uncomfortable situations. There are two proven paths to really curbing worrying. The one path is challenging the thoughts. The formal name for this is cognitive restructuring, restructuring my cognitions or my thoughts, challenging them. And I've given you some tips to get started on this today, but if you want to follow up with more cognitive restructuring, there are counselors who specialize in this particular topic. It's called cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short. The other proven path is relaxation training, self-calming. And there are professionals like myself who could help coach you in getting stronger strategies to self-calm. Both of these topics are well written about in books, and you're going to see them listed here in our resource section at the end of the webinar. Today, for our relaxation training, we tried working with breathing, muscle relaxation, so we had the idea of hold, let it go, and move on, and using imagery. For cognitive restructuring, it was about challenging the thoughts. It's just a thought. Thoughts pop into our brain. Sometimes they're very irrational and illogical. Saying, so what? Especially if you're literally a person who says, what if? So what if? I will handle it. Come up with the plan. If I tend to be the person who overestimates how bad it could be, if you were to read in those books or talk to a counselor, the things that they might suggest that you do to challenge the thoughts would be asking yourself some questions, like what's the worst possible realistic thing that could happen? You know, if that does happen, would it mean that my family would shut the door in my face and wouldn't ever see me again? That the dog would bite my leg off? That would make the front page newspaper across Canada, across North America, South America, Asia, Europe, Australia? What is the most realistic, worst possible scenario? What are the facts? Can I get a second opinion? And if I tend to underestimate my ability to deal with it, reminding myself I'm an intelligent, creative person with strengths and talents and resources, I will handle it. Or perhaps conversely, saying to yourself, is it really true that I wouldn't find any way to cope, even if it was a really tough situation? I will handle it. People who are ruminators, it may be helpful if you find it's going around and around and around and around to do what's called the 2-minute rule, because many people think that it actually may be helpful to be worrying. They say to themselves, you know, If I'm worrying, at least it won't surprise me if it actually happens, or I'm going to be better prepared to deal with the situation if it does happen. Do you think like that? If you think the worry might be helpful, then try the 2-minute rule. Let yourself worry for 2 minutes. Let it ruminate, just percolate. Think about the possible negative scenario. And after 2 minutes, literally say, stop, which is where I got the name for our workshop today, Stop Worrying. Literally say, stop. Okay, I was doing that for 2 minutes. I did it for 2 minutes, and now ask yourself, did that actually help me come up with a better solution to a problem? Yes or no? Did that help me become less anxious? Yes or no? If it was helping me come up with a solution to a problem, a way to tackle it, if it was helping calm me down, then you're right, it is helpful. Keep going. But if the answer is no, I'm not coming up with a better solution to this situation, I am not calming myself down, then that particular worry is not helpful. It's going to be pointless to continue ruminating and spend the next 20 minutes or the next hour on it, because you're just going to get more of the same. It's going to make you more anxious, and you're not coming up with any solutions. So stop, let it go, move on. Sing a song with the radio, do something that's really engaging with your hands, play a musical instrument, move on. We've talked about maybe even getting it out of my head by writing it down, setting aside a time during the day to actually doing the worry and getting it out of my head. It's on paper, in black and white, where I can see that I've got a plan. Parking it, putting it away. Some people, as Dr. Reed Wilson, a psychologist who specializes in anxiety and worry, says some of his patients, they put that paper away in the freezer. And then when the thought comes back, they can say to themselves, hey, it's not time to pull a frozen dinner out right now and eat it frozen. It's not time to pull these thoughts out. Park it. I've already gone through that plan. Now it's time to move on, to think about something else. A newer idea in this field is practicing having some worry-free zones during your day. Would it be possible for the first 10 minutes when you're sitting inside the tractor, for the first 10 minutes when you're sitting down at a meal with your family, say to yourself or to others, this is a worry-free zone. We're going to talk about things that are really enjoyable, things that are great interests or passions about. Or when I'm in the vehicle, I'm going to take the first 10 minutes to just enjoy the music on the radio, to see what it looks like, to feel how it is to be driving this vehicle, tuning into my senses in the present moment, to be alive. So I have a 10-minute break, a respite from the worry kinds of thoughts. I'm living in the present moment now. If you get comfortable with 10-minute worry-free zones here and there throughout your day, can you lengthen them to 15 minutes? To 20 minutes, to half an hour, so then you can read a book or a magazine for half an hour and enjoy that. Training yourself that worry is for a particular time during the day, for my worry time. You are that person who thinks worry will prepare me for events happening in the future. It's really going to help me cope better. The bad news is the research does not bear it out at all. In fact, the research says that if I'm thinking those things, they are myths. The fact is that it will not prepare me for events that are outside of my control. And that if I think it's helpful, it actually turns out that I'm actually going to use ruminating as a strategy to deal with problems. Ruminating is not solving a problem. Ruminating is just thinking about the problem. It seems to slow us down if we worry all the time, such that really what's happening is I'm confusing ruminating with problem solving. Ruminating is thinking about the problem over and over and over. So it doesn't solve anything. In fact, it tends to decrease my confidence about approaching a problem, my optimism about the future. I'm less willing to actually solve problems. So why would we ruminate? What advantage does it have? they actually are wondering if the advantage to ruminating is if I'm thinking so much about these thoughts, it's helping me not really feel fully some uncomfortable feelings, the anxiety or the fear or the discomfort about something. I might be trying to block an uncomfortable feeling. So maybe it would be helpful to ask the question, if I wasn't worrying about this thought right now, what would I be feeling? And understanding we can't be happy all the time. We don't feel good all the time. Sometimes there's physical pain, emotional pain. Sometimes we're getting down because of the way stuff is happening in life for us. Sometimes we're feeling anger. It's like a package of crayons with all different colors. There's so many emotions we can experience in a day. If I wasn't worrying right now, what would I be feeling? And some counselors are asking people, could you try just sitting with the feelings for 90 seconds, for 2 minutes, just acknowledging this is how I'm feeling right now. And then asking yourself, what steps could I take? Start coping effectively through the rest of my day today. If the feelings are overwhelming, if they're getting me down, if it feels like I can't get on top of it, I really encourage you to seek professional help, to go through both of these paths, the relaxation self-calming path and the cognitive restructuring path, and maybe some other things that they might be able to add into your toolbox to help you more comfortably cope with where you're at now. Because some days the feelings can be pretty uncomfortable. A final pitfall that some people get into is their perfectionism. If you're that individual who has to have the perfect answer, you've got to find the perfect part, you've got to wait for the perfect day to be able to do the harvesting. That can really stress us out. I'm always saying, what if there's something better? What if this one isn't good enough? That does increase our stress and curb the perfectionism. And it may be helpful to talk to a professional. In the short term, maybe having a mantra to say to yourself. My favorite ones for my clients are things like, I don't need a perfect solution to this problem. I'll go with a practical one. Or right now, I don't need perfection. I need progress. What's the next step I could take to move forward with this project? Or imperfect action is better than perfect procrastination. The bottom line with all of these things, it's not what you know, it's going to be what you do. I was hoping by giving you more information about the fact our brain has a negativity bias, that we are prone to overestimate how bad things can be and underestimate our abilities to deal with it. We are prone to ruminating, or maybe trying to block off other thoughts and feelings by ruminating. That if I could understand when it's happening to me, maybe writing it down by tracking my worries, or taking steps for either of the proven paths, whatever works best for me, maybe combining the proven paths. Ask yourself right now, what skill could I build to be a little bit stronger, to help me be more aware of the worrying and when it's destructive and not helpful to me? And when I'm aware of it, what actions could I take to curb it and move to action? So I'm moving forward through a tough situation. It's not what you know. What are you going to do within the next 48 hours? What, where, when? Are you going to do something to decrease this worrying? If you could write it down, you really strongly set that intention, it's going to be easier to follow through. I've got some resources for you after you've written down your own action plan. especially thinking within the next 48 hours of what you're going to do, because if you don't do it in 48 hours, chances are you're not going to do it. You've got your own personal skills, things you've learned from past experience. There's some really good books like Mind Over Mood for the cognitive restructuring. If you worry a lot about your health, I strongly recommend the book. It's not all in your head. There are a lot of professional resources as well with your health counselors, clergy. You can seek out these resources. I'm wondering if you have any questions. Nobody's got any questions at this point. So what I'm going to do is just encourage you to really use all of your supports, in addition to your own personal resources, to further develop your skills at curbing the worrying. Keep looking after yourself.
Thank you, Kathy, for that. We'll give it just a few more minutes and wait for some questions, and then we'll sign off. And I want to take a moment to thank Kathy for all of the webinar series that we've had over the past month, 2 months. They've been really insightful, and they've been really great for everybody. So we'll just take a few more minutes, and then we'll sign off and say goodbye. And with that, we're going to wrap things up and sign off. I hope you all have a great day and an even better week. Thanks.